let's talk about watering, because Greg also mentioned that one of the things he wants to do is figure out, okay, I want to get my watering right. And I talk about that a lot. If you got my email blast this last week here, that also talks a lot about watering. Make sure you're irrigating. So he's talking about that. So let me give you some advice on watering. And I'm going to assume that you're manually watering here. And I'm going to assume that most of you that are listening to this, you're manually watering. You don't have an in-ground sprinkler system. That would be a different conversation. I'm thinking about you that are moving sprinklers. In my lawn up in Northwest Indiana, I moved sprinklers for all of the 10 or 12 years that I lived there. I moved sprinklers around everywhere all the time. I used impact sprinklers, and we have videos that I've done on that, as well as I talked about that in my most recent email. But one of the things you can do, since, Greg, you already have a property map that you've already made, you already measured your lawn, you've already sectioned it off, which is good. That's the first step that anybody should do in any lawn care program, is measure your lawn and section it off and make a property map. Very simple way to get started. Now what you do is you literally draw on the map, and I'll be doing this in my video this weekend on my YouTube channel, so subscribe there, The Lawn Care Nut. But you literally use that same map, and you put dots on the map at your best manual sprinkler location. So let's see if I've got one impact sprinkler that I can run at a time. Most of you aren't going to have enough water pressure to run more than 2 sprinklers at a time, but the majority of you will only run 1 at a time. It's just how it ends up working. So I got my 1 sprinkler, and what I'm going to do is go to each area or each mapped out area or zone that I've already created in my measurement, and I'm going to see the best optimum spots to put the sprinkler that it can cover those spots. Once I know those most optimum spots, then I'm going to set out my tuna can, and I'm going to take the tuna can challenge, and what that is I'm going to set the sprinkler in that optimum spot, and I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to set the tuna can out in the middle of it, and when that tuna can, I want to start a timer, by the way, and when that tuna can gets a ½ inch of water in it, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to mark that down on the property map. So section 1, position 1 of irrigation, 15 minutes. Then I'm going to go to another section. And each section of your lawn, depending how big it is, you may have to put your sprinkler in 2 different spots. Some might be small enough that you put them in 1 different spot. Some might be oblong so that the sprinkler doesn't have to have as wide of a coverage area or not. But this is all part of learning that land and learning that adjustment. And basically from there, going forward, you pick your spots. Once you've mapped out every spot, and again, I'm going to show you this in detail. I have an in-ground sprinkler system, but I'm going to show you how to manually map it out at my property here. In Florida, I'm going to do that this weekend on the YouTube channel, Lawn Care Nut. I'm going to show you how to map out each one of these spots, each one of these areas, so that you can very easily then know ahead of time when it's time to water, where you put your sprinkler, how long you got to leave it there. Now, I can tell you that in the hottest days in the summer, every grass type, I don't care what grass type it is going to need to get watered every 3 days. Now, I'm talking about up in the north in the cool season lawns, in the cool season lawn areas, up in Cincinnati, for sure. When you get those days, Cincinnati, which is a little further south than I lived, up in Northwest Indiana, for sure you're going to get those long stretches of 90-degree days. When you get that, your turf-type tall fescue, your Kentucky bluegrass, your perennial ryegrass, it's not going to like that. I don't care how deep the roots are. I don't care how much you water it. It's not going to like that. So you're going to need to give it additional irrigation just to keep it going through the heat stress, and that's going to be every 3 days. And in some cases, it might even need to be more. You might need to do a little bit of cool down and syringing in the afternoon. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in the video coming up this weekend. But the idea being that you might actually be watering your lawn nearly every day when you water manually. That's because you can't do everything all in one time. You don't have large sweeping areas. You have 1 single sprinkler that you might have to move around an 8,000 or 10,000 square foot lawn. And when you do that, that means you might have to have it running every single morning for an hour, or every single afternoon for an hour, or God forbid, in the evenings. By the way, a lot of people will ask me, Alan, if I can't water in the morning, what do I do? Well, then you water in the evening. I tell you not to water in the evening because that's the best practice. The best idea is to not water in the evening, because what can happen is the water sits there warm all night, and if there is disease present, it can allow that disease triangle to come together and fungus can break out, and then you're going to have that problem. However, what's worse, no water and going into summer dormancy, or dealing with a little bit of disease? Well, you got to kind of weigh out your options there. And personally, because I like to grow a lawn, I like my lawn to stay green all summer, I would rather risk a little bit of disease rather than not water. So if your work schedule is such that you cannot water in the mornings and you cannot water in the afternoons, your work schedule says, I have to water in the evenings, then watering in the evenings is better than not watering at all. So figure out your best watering times, and from there, now what you know is each section on your map where you put the sprinkler. So you got 7 days a week that you can water. And again, I'm not talking about watering restrictions. That's a whole nother ball of wax that we can get into. So I'm just pretending nobody has watering restrictions right now and that you're going to figure this out. You're going to water every single evening. Let's say that out of the 5 sections in your lawn, there are 10 points where you have to put the sprinkler. That means that every night you're going to have to put the sprinkler in 2 different places. So the way I would manage this is I almost look at it like kind of like how a busy family manages kids during sports. I mean, you guys have all known people that have had like 3 or 4 kids, and they're all in those ages where they're all playing sports. Maybe they're playing baseball and soccer and football and whatever other sports. All can overlap, spring sports type of thing. You know, those all overlap. And what do you do when you can only get those kids to practice into games and you only have 2 cars but you have 4 kids? What do you do? Well, you manage it. And in some cases, little Johnny might have to get to his practice 30 minutes early so that way Susie can get to her game on time. And maybe Johnny then will have to stay at his practice 30 minutes later because Susie's game will end later. Or maybe Susie has to be picked up later so you can get Johnny. Or maybe Susie has to go and stay at a friend's house for a little while so you can get... You see how that works. You're managing schedules. And that's how you manage your water. Manage it just like a family manages their kids, right? So I know that when I come home on Mondays, I'm going to set the sprinkler out for 45 minutes in section 1. But hey, I need to go to bed early tonight because I got to be up in the morning. So I'm going to have to cut section 1 off 10 minutes early so I can get to section 2 and at least get some there. But you know what? I'll make that up later in the week. You know, you can manage it that way. Also, another way to look at it is to manage it like you're cooking. If you watch people that are really good at cooking, they'll have a 4-burner stove and they'll have 4 different things going on that stove. And all those different things do not cook at the same rate. They don't need the same temperature. They might need things added to them at different times. They might need to be taken on and off the heat. They might need to be strained, whatever it is. They might need to be moved to a different vessel. But for some reason, people can do that. They can multitask on that cooking surface. And that's the same way you do this with the lawn. You multitask the sections of the lawn, and the best way to multitask the sections of the lawn are to first understand your best spots. Pick your best spots so you know where to put that sprinkler and get your watering done as efficiently as possible. Now, you're not going to be perfect. Sometimes you're going to burn the bacon. It's just going to happen. Sometimes Johnny's going to have to miss a game because it's just how it works. We've only got 2 cars. We've only got so much time, and Mom's got to be out of town on a business trip. So, Johnny, you're going to have to miss your game. Or maybe that's where you ask a neighbor to help you out, and the neighbor takes Johnny to his game so he doesn't have to miss it. Maybe the neighbor can help you turn your sprinklers on and off. Hey, Ed next door, hey, brah, I put my sprinkler in the backyard. Listen, I got to work a double shift tonight. I'm not going to be home. Sprinkler's sitting back there. Would you mind going over 5 o'clock and turning it on for me? Leave it on for like 45 minutes. If you do, text me when you turn it on. I'll text you, remind you to turn it off when it's over. Or you can even get individual timers. A lot of different options there, but manual watering doesn't have to be something that you just go out and guess at. It doesn't have to be something that you're spraying and praying. You can literally dial it in. And keep in mind, you don't have to do this much watering for very long. Most of you where you live, this may only be a 3-week stretch that it needs this much water. Even less than that, unless we have a drought situation. For the most part, though, and I remember this living in Northwest Indiana, having a healthy turf-type tall fescue lawn that had deep roots, for the most part, I could get away with watering the lawn only on weekends. Maybe once during the week I might have to do it, but still, I knew the best spots. I also would water by feel. I would look at the areas that were weak, and those are where I would go first. And I had other areas that I knew were stronger that didn't need as much water, that maybe got a little more shade, and I would hit those a little less often. That's what you get to eventually. Creating these very specific maps and mapping things out and understanding timing and all of that is what you do in the beginning, so that after a couple years, even after a year, after one season, you're really managing a lot of this on feel. And you just know what areas are going to check out sooner than others, and you won't have to have this massive schedule like this. That's kind of like as your kids grow up and one of them begins driving, you don't need to worry about them as much more. They are much more independent, and they don't need you to take them to the games as much more, so you can focus on the children that are not grown, that are still growing, that still need your help that much more. So those are some really good analogies. At least I think they're really good analogies. And I hope those help you out, Greg. I know you're going to do great. I hope you have a great season. I'm really glad that you're progressing along the line. And as always, I'm going to hope for the best.